Almasi!
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 Umepotea wapi? Oh, nimemwona. Almasi!
Soon Almasi found herself surrounded by her cousins, all talking at once, happy to have found her. Her uncle and aunt had been very upset when the cousins came home without her and sent them straight back to look for her.
Mmemwacha wapi Almasi? Jamani, endeni mkamtafute bana.
They knew how dangerous it was in the mangroves when the big waves crashed through the thinning trees. Even the shambas near the forest were unprotected now.
Almasi duok pacho, Baba luongi Almasi duok pacho, berana secho chopo, duog dala piny koro seyuso, duog dala piny koro seyuso, duog dala piny koro seyuso.
Almasi's aunt hugged her tight and sent them all to wash their hands for supper. Soon they were seated round, being served fish and wali. Auntie, ulipika na nini? Mnazi, msichana wangu, smiled her aunt, serving her some more. Almasi thought she had never tasted anything so delicious. All the children were very hungry and supper was soon over. Only then did Mjomba ask what had happened in the mangroves and why Almasi had got left behind. They told him about the black cloud that seemed to come out of the tree roots, growing so fast and scaring them till they all ran screaming. All that is, except Almasi. Mjomba nodded his head. He had heard of this strange cloud, especially from those who made a profession out of chopping and selling mangrove poles. But he had never seen it himself. He asked Almasi to continue. She told them that as she stood still watching the cloud, she found she could see right through it, and there was the forest beyond it just the same. As she watched it, the cloud simply sank down and disappeared. So she walked on. New as she was to the mangrove forest, used to walking through city streets to school each day, she found everything fascinating. The different types of crabs and shellfish, bees and butterflies everywhere, and the huge roots of the mangroves that she had to scramble over. She walked on and on, until suddenly the trees came to an end. Then the big wave came. But how she got from there to the shamba, she couldn't explain and stopped talking. Her uncle and aunt looked at her, wondering. Then Uncle declared that the children must stop going into the mangroves for firewood and go to the other part of the forest, away from the sea. Almasi yawned loudly. The little girl was tired. With her adventure in the mangroves and all the fresh sea air, her aunt smiled and, rising quickly, hustled her off to bed in the room she was sharing with her big cousin, Shomo. So Almasi's first day at the coast came to an end. A ray of sunlight crept over the windowsill and glinted on the SeaGlass lying on the table next to Almasi's bed. It sparkled and shimmered. A sudden flash lighting her face, she opened her eyes and smiled. "My diamond," she whispered. "My magic diamond." She stretched out her hand and picked it up, turning it this way and that. It shone with different colours. The sparkles woke her cousin too. She lay there for a while watching Almasi. She asked to look at the glass herself, She'd often picked up such pieces, but she'd never seen one that sparkled as much and with so many colours as this one. It really was quite special. Although Shomo had lived all her life near the sea, she'd never ventured far into the forest. They always collected their firewood at the edge. She wished she hadn't run away with the others the day before. At last she handed the piece of glass back to Almasi. Their mother was calling from the kitchen. The girls jumped out of bed and were soon in the yard with Hassan and Lali, drinking the mugs of uji their mother handed them. Hassan wanted to hear more about yesterday. He was puzzled about how his cousin had ended up in the shamba. Almasi started again describing how interesting the forest was. Then Shomo interrupted, telling her to show Hassan the piece of glass she had found. She removed it from her pocket and they all passed it round, agreeing they had never seen a piece quite like it. "It's my magic diamond," she declared. "How is it magic?" scoffed Hassan. "It helped me get away from the big wave, together with a magic butterfly." "A magic butterfly? You were just scared and ran fast." Almasi said nothing. She knew something extraordinary had happened to her the day before. She knew she had flown over the waters on a beautiful butterfly, and she knew the diamond had a part in it. But she couldn't explain any of it. And her cousins were staring at her. So she put the piece of glass back in her pocket and said nothing. Hassan took the mugs into the kitchen, and Auntie set down a bowl of beans for them to clean. The children laughed and chatted about this and that, but the conversation soon wandered back to the mangroves and the black cloud they knew they had all seen. They asked Almasi to describe again what had happened to it, and they wondered, why hadn't she been scared like them? Beans finished, their mother gave them all pieces of sugar cane, and they were free to go off and do as they pleased till lunchtime. "Msiende mi kokoni," she called as they ran off. They were soon running along the edge of the trees. They could see big patches of sand between the muddy puddles. The tide was far out. They had plenty of time. They looked at each other and ran inside. "This way," cried Almasi. And soon they were leaping over tree roots, splashing through puddles, their toes sinking in the sand. "Look, look," they cried to each other as the ghost crabs ran wildly about in front of them, dashing down their holes. They picked up stones and shells and little pieces of wood smoothened by the sea waters. Bees buzzed through the leaves and the colourful butterflies were everywhere. Even Hassan stopped looking for poles for his chickens and picked up shells with the others, watching the hermit crabs scampering around. Almasi was right. It was a fascinating place. They wondered why they had never explored it before. Then suddenly there were shouts ahead, and they saw the woodcutters running through the mangroves. And slowly, slowly, out of the tree roots seeped a dark cloud. The children wanted to run too. "No, no," cried Almasi, "stand still." And she grabbed Shoma's hand. Hassan and Lali stopped too, and they all watched the black cloud growing before them.
Mama luongi Almasi duog pacho. Mama luongi Almasi duog pacho. Seche ochopo duog dala piny koro seyuso. Duog dala piny koro seyuso.